Okay.
So you can grow in size of the work you do, but it doesn't necessarily mean the complexity of what you do changes. So let's say you're making car parks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I make a car park which is 100 square meters. Okay. And I become very good at making car parks of 100 square meters. Now I get given a car park of 1 million square meters. But the chances are I can do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the same work.
It's just multiplication, right?
Yeah, it's the same work. But if you look at oil and gas and petrochemical projects, is not the same.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so because what's happening is that the level of complexity, the number of moving parts that you have to then manage increases dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's different things that you might not have done before.
Before we begin the podcast, have you gotten your free ebook? It's called the Build a Six-Figure Portfolio Guidebook. Now, inside it, we share with you the tips and tricks to bring your stock investing skills to the next level. The best part, it's only 10 pages long and it's totally free. Whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, the link to download is in the description, or you can go to www.firl.co/free or www.firl.co/free.
Hello, and welcome back to the FIRL podcast, a best place for long-term stock investors. And today we have a special, right, MJ?
Of course.
Yeah.
All guests are special, but definitely this one is 100% certified special. Right?
Special, right? The feeling I got when I was preparing today, MJ, was, you know, when Sir Alex Ferguson was being interviewed by, what's that guy's name? The defender?
Was Gary Neville, I think.
Gary Neville, yeah. And, you know, so I have Sir Alex Ferguson and I'm probably Gary Neville today in the team. Today we have Kamesam Shankar, a very, very experienced oil and gas executive. And I'm going to try to tap from him his vast experience of being a client, being a contractor, and then being a client again in the oil and gas industry. Probably some key takeaway for the audience is understanding the field development plan of an oil and gas field, understanding how EPCC contractors work, and probably some of the key, how to read in between the lines of business strategies, and even, you know, big cases, I would say cases of oil and gas companies not revealing everything today.
Yeah, I guess if you're listening to this, if you ever wanted to know some of the intricacies, right, of the oil and gas industry, which is at the heart of a big part of Malaysia, but also one that is very hidden in terms of the inner workings, right? A lot of people, not because they're trying to hide anything, or maybe they are, I'm not sure, but but just by nature, it's many moving parts, very complicated, highly technical, and so I think we've got the perfect person today to
precisely
open this treasure box, right?
Yes, Kamesam, thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, so for context, why Gary Neville, Sir Alex Ferguson, Kamesam used to be my boss's boss. Where I was, and it's not every day that someone gets to interview the boss, right? So Kamesam, maybe take us through what was life at 15 years old, you know, and growing. Where do you grew up, and then what inspired you? Do you had any role models like back then?
You know, after that introduction, I feel a bit shy. Right? Alex Ferguson, really.
Yeah.
I'm more shocked about the Gary Neville comparisons, actually. Not the guy you want to compare yourself to.
Really? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I went to school in KL in St. John's. And at about 14, I went to boarding school in the UK.
Okay.
So you asked me, okay, role models. I think probably my biggest role model is my father.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And still today.
Okay.
Still today.
Was he a civil servant? Was he in business, or was
My father was a lawyer.
Okay.
And a very prominent lawyer.
Okay.
And then became a judge.
I see.
He ended up in the Court of Appeal.
Is he still serving?
No. He retired many years ago.
I see.
But he still keeps himself very busy.
Understand.
So
But you didn't end up doing law. You went to UMIS to do engineering. So
I know.
yeah, so
I know. That is what is called being stubborn.
okay.
Right. But okay, to be fair,
Yeah.
my grandfather, my maternal grandfather was an engineer.
I see.
But I think, to be honest, at the time, everybody expected me to become a lawyer. So I think out of pure bloody mindedness, I said, no, I don't want to. I think I'm going to go and become an engineer instead.
Okay. But what sparked you to do engineering actually? Chemical engineering to be specific.
To be really honest, okay, so at the end of A levels,
Okay.
I had no idea what I wanted to do
Ah.
at all. So I chose something which would allow me basically to continue with like doing physics, chemistry, and maths, because that was the stuff that I was good at.
I see.
In retrospect, especially considering what I'm doing today, probably being a lawyer wouldn't have been a bad decision.
More fees,
But I
right?
don't regret being an engineer either. Chemical engineering, it just seemed to be a logical continuation of what I was doing in school.
I see.
I don't think I was a very good chemical engineer, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
were you on a scholarship back then, or was
Yeah. It was called the FM scholarship.
father mother scholarship?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, exactly.
very, very prominent.
That's
scholarship.
right. Yeah.
So you came back to Malaysia and you ended up in the national company. Take us through that. What was the insightful things that you managed to get from that experience actually?
It was a very, very good experience.
Okay.
So when I came back from uni and I joined Petronas, at that time the gas industry in Malaysia was just starting.
I see.
At that time, most of the gas, especially off peninsular Malaysia, was just fled. It's just burnt offshore. So this PGU project was conceived
Okay.
to collect the gas and bring it onshore, and then treat the gas onshore, and then distribute it throughout peninsular Malaysia.
Okay.
So it was all very new and very fresh.
This is the 1980s or
This was 1980. I joined Petronas in December 82.
in 1982. So
So almost 40 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 40 years. Yeah,
People
so
have been born and
I was born 1979. So
you were not even a twinkle.
When you were 3.
Not even a twinkle in your dad's eye.
yeah.
at that time.
Oh,
Oh, 82. No, you were already a twinkle.
Twinkle,
You twinkled already. Yeah.
But from there you moved on, ironically, to a contractor, and you did a lot of the gas work. You were leading projects. You were dealing. I'm pretty sure you were dealing with a lot of contractors, and then you move. Correct me if I'm wrong. You went to a contractor after that, which was Technip, right?
Mm-hmm.
What actually prompted you to make that switch? Actually,
Honestly speaking, I think I felt in Petronas that I had learned as much as I was going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, one has to thank the company for the learning experience, because given that everything was so new,
yeah.
even as a very fresh engineer, you were given a lot of opportunity. So we got sent off to Japan for the engineering of the first GPP.
Okay.
And I had precisely 3 months experience.
Okay.
It's unheard of actually.
Okay.
That in other organization, when you are an engineer like that, you sit in the office and you
They throw you some manuals. And then,
and exactly you do that for a year or two before sorry, should have switched this off.
No worries. So JGC Japan.
Yeah, Japan.
Yeah.
So, after 3 months, you get to go to Japan, spend a year or so in Japan, traveling up and down Japan, looking at things, receiving the education that you would normally never get in university.
Correct.
And then coming back, working on the construction of the first GPP.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real hands-on introduction on how to do a project, how things work in a project, all of that stuff. But after, I suppose I was 7 years in Petronas, it became fairly clear that the upwards trajectory had kind of flattened.
Okay.
For whatever reason. And I was offered something by Technip.
Okay.
And it was more money than I was getting, and it seemed to be more fun than what I was doing. So I did it.
Yeah. Maybe so for some context for the audience who are not from the oil and gas industry, who is Technip?
Okay.
Yeah.
Technip is a large contractor. It does work. It's a French company initially. They set up an office in Malaysia.
Okay.
Initially to work on offshore projects. They then started doing petrochemical and onshore work as well. When I started with the company, they had about 80 employees.
Okay.
When I left the company, they probably had more than 2,000 employees.
So
And they were all over Asia Pacific.
They grew. So KL is the hub today for them.
KL was the hub for them. Yeah.
I see. And Technip, why is it so embedded in the Malaysian oil and gas scene? Maybe if you can give some context to that. Why are they so?
Why are they crucial?
Yeah,
to
why
the
are they
business,
crucial to
the entire
to the value chain
yeah.
actually?
Well, I don't know whether Technip per se is crucial to the value chain, but I think what they bring to the value chain is they started up with the experience from the French mothership.
Okay.
But then I think they grew very organically. So they started with small offshore projects. Then they grew into bigger projects. Then they started doing lump sum projects. So when they started, it was not lump sum. It was all on rates.
Day rates. Okay.
On day rates. Yeah. So, if an engineer works X number of hours, they get paid X amount of stuff. And they local hired a lot. So there was a lot of development of local personnel. And then gradually extended themselves into more complicated and EPC lump sum work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think so what value do they bring? I mean, if you have 2,000 employees, that brings value in itself, I think. But also the way that they grew, they exposed these people to genuine, proper projects.
Okay.
Not just doing small stuff offshore, but real meaty projects.
Correct.
And that's the way to develop people.
Yeah. I had the benefit of working with Technip on probably 3 or 4 projects, and every time I compare Technip's engineering work comparatively to the rest, which we'll not name,
Let's not.
Yeah. There's always a distinct difference in quality. That's my honest opinion. Yeah. So I think distinct difference in quality meaning it's better. And the reason why I say that is because every time a report or a drawing or a design comes out from Technip, it's quite well thought through. That was my very good experience, dealing with Technip at that point. And I think what you just said kind of like highlights the reason why they're probably the exposure that they get, probably the training, and probably how the organization has grown organically. So maybe from there, let's segue into something that you moved into something completely. So at Technip, you grew up the ranks and you started to manage projects. From there, probably can you tell us what were the most difficult clients that you had to deal with in Technip? And what were the challenges of an EPCC contractor when you were managing projects? What were the biggest risk that you guys were taking on?
Yeah, so I mean, I started in Technip as a process engineer. And then I think after a few years, I told you I was not a good chemical engineer, right? So after a few years, I think the bosses looked at me and said, okay, this guy ain't so hot. so maybe let's try him in project engineering. Okay. And actually,
that's where you flourished, right?
Yeah. No, I don't know if I'm the best project engineer, but okay, it was good enough.
Okay.
So your question, sorry, was on
let's just say
the most difficult clients.
Yeah, because when you were in projects, clients, maybe for the audience benefit, clients would give you either a contract for a man-day rate or a lump sum. And let's just say, as you mentioned, it's now a lump sum contract. And clients would want to do, can you do this study for me? Can you do this study for me? And your role is like, how do you balance getting a technically sound or engineered project against your time and man-hour costs? So I'm pretty sure some clients were like, they'll bargain hard with you and says, hey, you know, do this is for free. It's supposed to be. And you would have to argue back and says, no, what we've done is sufficient, you know. Probably come from that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we differentiate, first of all, between rates, project done on rates, and a lump sum project. Okay, so
correct.
what does it mean? So a project done on rates, at its most basic level is, I come to you, I say I want some work done,
Okay.
and you give me a slate of charges,
Okay.
and say that, well, fine. So this work requires, I don't know, a civil engineer, electrical engineer, whatever engineer. And for every hour that they work on your job, I will charge you X amount of money.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a project done on rates. Now,
Okay.
it's very rare in the oil and gas business that you get pure rates. So normally there will always be some cap. So the client will say, that's fine. So how many hours do you think it's going to be? And I'd say, well, okay, 1,000 hours or 3,000 hours.
Okay.
And up to 3,000 hours, that's okay, you
Okay.
spend. Now, if you overrun the 3,000 hours, then the question is, well, whose fault is it? Right? And who should pay for it?
Okay.
Yeah. And typically the contracts will have some sort of mechanism
I see.
on how you manage these overruns.
Okay.
So it might be that after a certain threshold, you don't get paid any profit. It might be that after a certain threshold, you don't get paid anything.
I see.
And then you have to talk about why and how much more and stuff like that.
I see.
However, at the end of the day, that type of contract is inherently pretty much risk-free, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because let's take the model where when you reach your threshold, then you get paid at cost.
Okay.
You don't lose money.
You don't. Yeah, exactly.
You don't lose money, right?
Yeah.
So up to X hours, you got paid money.
Okay.
After that, you're still working.
Okay.
So maybe what you're losing is the opportunity cost of making money on another project where you could get a profit.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a very low risk endeavor.
Okay.
And there are still many companies today in Malaysia, especially offshore,
Okay.
which is deemed a bit more risky,
Yes.
that are quite happy to work on that model. But why would you not want to work on that model? Because it's deemed less risky. Your profit margin is much less, right? So typically, I don't know, you can say, well, I will take, here's my cost. So that the way that this will work is you declare your costs. You say, look, here's what I pay this guy. This is how much his EPF is, blah, 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 right? And now on top of that, I'll take 2%.
Oh, okay.
3% or 4% or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's fair, right? Because no risk.
Yeah.
The client is absorbing the risk.
Correct.
The flip side is the lump sum. So you have different flavors of lump sum project.
Okay.
So we talked about EPC, right?
Yes.
So what is EPC? EPC is engineering, procurement, construction.
Yes.
If you're doing an offshore project, you might have installation.
Yes.
In that case, it becomes EPIC.
Correct.
Yeah. The profit margin, potential profit margin in an EPC project is much higher, right? Potentially, right? But the risks are much higher too.
Correct.
Because in an EPC project, you're basically saying to the client, okay, you want to build a gas plant or oil platform or whatever it is.
Correct.
It's going to cost you X number of dollars.
Yep.
And then I am totally responsible for delivering that project within that X number of dollars.
That's right.
If it's less than that X number of dollars, I profit.
Yeah.
If it's more than that X number of dollars,
You have to bear the cost.
you have to swallow it.
Yeah.
Right? And the swallowing can be quite a big swallow, right? Because you're talking about fairly large projects.
That's right.
Yeah. So your question was risk management, was it?
How does it so the risk, obviously the risk-free model, so I'm talking from the contractor's perspective now, which is Technip. For the man-hour rates mechanism, it's quite clear that the risk is ironically less for EPC contractor like Technip. But when you move over to the flip side, the lump sum contracts, right? How do you guys, in a way, when you were in Technip, how do you manage that risk? Because obviously you engineer it, you procure the equipment, and then you build it, right? And it doesn't work together. So is it through experience? Is it through buying trusted vendors that, or you park in enough margins that if there is a mistake in your engineering or your procurement, that you can actually cover back the cost.
So all of the above, in fact.
Yeah.
So the key is when you're doing a lump sum project, and whether it's a lump sum project to build a building or whether it's a lump sum project to build an oil refinery or whatever it is, you have to be able to estimate first.
Okay.
Right? Because you're coming up with a cost.
Yes.
Right? And then you're having to live by that cost.
Yes.
So how do you build up that cost? So if you are doing EPC, you then have to be able to estimate how much is the engineering going to be, how long is it going to take me, how much is it going to cost me to buy the stuff, and how much is it going to cost me to construct.
Okay.
So the bigger contractors all have a database. Okay, and they all have historical data, which tells them to some level of accuracy, if I'm doing this kind of project, how many man hours do I need? How much are my man hours? I can calculate the cost of that.
Yeah.
Typically, the client, when you're doing a project, will give you some sort of basic design.
Or a BFD lah.
Yeah. So he will basically say, well, here's something like what I want. These are the specifications of what I want. And you can use that and go to the market. And then you go to your trusted vendors, right? And say, oh, well, Mr. I don't know, Siemens. I want to buy a compressor and the compressor is going to be this kind of size. And he'll come back and say, well, yeah, okay, it's going to cost you this much.
Yeah.
And then similarly for construction, you have your data set, which says, I know that for this volume of concrete, I need this number of people, this amount of money, and so on and so forth.
This number of man hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can construct something. So that gives you your basic estimation. On top of that, then, you have to think about what the other risks could be.
Okay.
So you're a lump sum contractor, and the problem with being a lump sum contractor, a turnkey lump sum contractor, is you have to make it work. And coming back to what the law says on this generally is that when you go into a lump sum contract, all the nitty-gritty that goes into the contract is on you, not on the client.
Okay.
So you are responsible for delivering a functioning product according to the specification.
Yeah.
So you then have to think about, well, what's the technical risk? Do I know this process, right? Do I know that, whatever the basic design is, when I actually put it together, will it produce whatever amount of whatever,
Yeah.
And if that's, if you have some doubt there, then you got to think, well, okay, if it doesn't work, what do I need to do? Do I need to make this bigger? Do I need to move, make this pump bigger, this vessel bigger, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you got to build that into your cost. That's risk money.
Correct.
Then you have to look at the market. So if you look at what your procurement cost is going to be, I mean, when you go out to your vendor and say, John, I want to buy a pump. And John, you'll come to me and say, yeah, okay, Kamesam, this pump costs you 500,000 ringgit because it's a big pump and very complicated. And it will take me a year to build. And by the way, this is just a budget price. When you give me the real details of the pumps and the real specs, I'll tell you what the real price is. So now you, as the contractor now, have to make an assessment on what's going to happen to the market. Yeah. So you got to think, well, this pump is made from steel, and will the steel price go up in the next whatever it is?
Yeah.
Will the price of shipping this pump, because I'm shipping it from Germany?
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know whether you know, but the price of shipping apparently I've told has tripled.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months or something like that.
Correct.
So now typically shipping is maybe 2% or 3% of your cost. If it triples, it's 6% of your cost. Now, you can't, in a lump sum project, you can't go back to the client and say, oh, I'm very sorry, Mr. Client, the price of container shipping has gone up.
Yeah.
And the client would say, yeah, I'm also very sorry, but it's your bad.
Yeah, you put it in a contract, right?
You took the contract.
Yeah.
And so this is I suppose as a contractor, I've heard it,
Yeah.
and as a client, I've said it.
Yeah.
is to say, well, you are a big boy. You took the contract. You know the risk. So yeah, I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for telling me. Right?
And it's good that I want to roll back, and there were a lot of nuggets there. The first thing is you said that if you're an EPCC contractor and the size of you being done big projects before gives you the confidence because you have that database built up. But anyone, because today, my leading question is actually this. Everybody claims, especially in Malaysia, that they are an EPCC contractor. Without experience, I think MJ and I, we've spoken about a few of these companies. And they say, oh, I'm an EPCC. Oh, I'm also an EPCC, right? And, people in the industry were like, huh? Are you sure you're an EPCC? So
Yeah, I also asked the question.
there was even this group that was starts with E. They were doing, I think, highway construction, steel piling, and then all of a sudden they're oil and gas EPCC. I scratched my head and I'm trying to figure out where did they get. So the question probably comes from this: if you don't have a database or don't have experienced people, what would happen to their costing? Will it be, like what you just described, you don't have relationship with the pump vendors, you don't have a database of man hours to say, oh, this kind of thing, I should park in this margin because this will likely not work because of our previous experience. So if the new entrants, when they come in, are they at a huge disadvantage in terms of costing, in a way? New players, compared to guys like Technip or Randhill or, Mustang Engineering?
Well, short answer is yes, of course.
Okay. Long answer, where do you think they will likely, where will be their likely cost increase or cost disadvantage actually?
We come back to your question about history and whatever. You can buy that too, right?
You can buy people.
You buy people, right?
Yeah, yes.
So you go onto the market and you go and hire experienced people.
Correct.
And then you bring them on board. But the problem really, I think, for an EPC contractor is that you have to be integrated. So in the sense that each of the bits has to work with each other, the communication with your engineering and your procurement and your construction, those lines of communication have to be very clear. The understanding of each component in the value chain, of the role of the previous component, the next component, their role also has to be clear.
Okay.
And so I talked about Technip, and I think I attribute a lot of their success to organic growth. But there are many companies that have grown inorganically in the sense that they buy they buy the bits, right? And then I'm not going to mention any names right now. But when you do that, then I think, first of all, you take on a risk that the left hand, not to say doesn't know what the right hand is. You know what the right hand is doing, but you don't quite know when it's going to do it and how exactly it's going to do it. And that makes a difference. Yeah. So
I think it's that gelling part that
one is the gelling, and two is the lack of competency and probably competency is the right word at the management level. Because now you have bought the bits, okay?
Yes.
And let's just say whether you bought the bit by buying a company or you bought the bit by importing expertise into your company.
Yeah.
But somebody now needs to look at all of this.
Correct.
And somebody needs to make it all work.
Correct.
Right? Together.
Correct.
Now, if you don't have that competency, it doesn't mean it won't work. Right? So tomorrow, let's say that if you decided to go out and build a multi-story building, I'm sure at the end you'll build it, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it might, but the problem is it might take you a lot longer to build it.
That's right.
And it might cost you a lot more to build it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where I think the problem lies with a lot of the smaller EPC players in Malaysia. I mean, let's talk about Malaysia.
Yeah.
And the wannabe bigger players as well. Yeah. That you might have the individual parts that you think will perform well, but you don't have the cohesiveness across the structure and you don't have the management visibility to look and say, hey, look, that's not working too well with that. I need to go in and fix that. Yeah.
Okay. That's
So what happens then? All right. So of course, two things happen.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, or maybe three things happen actually. So first of all, you will overrun your cost.
yeah.
So you made an estimate on cost predicated on certain things working in a certain way.
Yeah.
And now they don't because your engineering, whatever, they changed the design. They didn't tell the procurement guy or the procurement bought something. It was a little bit different from what was originally specified. The construction people don't know about it. Some shit happened somewhere. and
Yeah.
Something that was supposed to arrive in January is now only arriving whenever.
Yeah.
Or your engineering is late because your client now, as you said, the client comes in and says, well, yes, I asked for a widget, but now I want a budget, or whatever it is, right? And you don't have the competence in your team to say, but if you make that change, so it comes down also a lot to change. So all of these are changes actually.
Correct.
They're either environmental changes or they're changes within your grasp, but the system didn't work or whatever it is, and the change management falls down, right? So you then end up, especially if you're an EPC contractor, where you've taken something for a specific time, which you're going to deliver for a specific amount of money, and you're not going to do it, right? So what will happen? You will overrun. Now, what happens when you overrun? 99.99% of the time, you not only overrun the time, you overrun the cost.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because even if everything else was equal, right? Even if you continue to spend the same amount for your bits and pieces and you paid the same amount for your construction, you're just spending more hours. And every hour you spend is more money for you.
That's right.
More money because your home office expenses are all there.
Correct.
Your management expenses are there.
Okay.
Your engineering was supposed to finish in June, is now finishing in October. So you need to pay your engineers from June to October. You still have to pay them.
Yeah.
The client's not going to pay you.
Correct. Exactly.
So that is the risk. So then the question is, when you go to these smaller guys, and in my current line of work, I see a lot of this.
Okay.
Either where people ask me to come in and say, well, look, we're not getting paid.
Okay.
Right? Or they come in to say, look, we believe we should have a claim, but we don't know how to make it. And then you look at it and say, but why didn't you say this at that time?
At the contract bit, right?
I mean, So you say when the client said, hey, actually now I want a budget, right? Why didn't you write to him and say, but your contract only calls for a digit.
Yeah.
So if you want this budget, it's going to take another 3 months and cost me that amount of money.
Yes.
And very often what they will say, we thought if we do a good job, we will be recognized for the job, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yes.
So they said, it's okay. We tried our best, and they really do. They really do try their best. We tried our best. We wanted to make the client happy, but in the end, nobody's happy, right? and that's, I think, experience and competence. Yes,
I think it's such a wonderful point, because even for MJ and myself, in our line of content creation, a lot of times people approach us and say, do things for free. Or if you do a good job, then we'll. And it sounds kind of similar right now, right?
Yeah. I'm just curious, how do you, let's say if you are a manager right now, or you're thinking of getting into the field, and I'm hearing all these things, right? What do you think are some of the things that, as someone who might become in top management to deal with the clients, what do you think are some of the skills and perhaps even things like personality and characteristics that you think someone actually needs to have? Because from the outside, right, it seems like a really tough job, and I don't think it's for most people. It's not something I would recommend to most people to do. But suppose someone wanted
being
to
a manager,
being the manager, being the ones to look at the contracts and learning when to say no, learning when to say, okay, fine, we can do this.
I think, look, yes, it's a tough job. 100%, yes, it's a tough job, but it's an extremely rewarding job, and it's an extremely fun job if that's what you like to do.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what skills do you need? You need to be able to. You need to be empathic. You need to have good communication skills. You need to have good relationship skills. You need to be honest. Yeah. You need to have, of course, just these are the soft skills. Right?
Yeah.
You need to have certain technical skills too. So, you need to know what's in your contract.
Correct.
Because when you are a project manager in an oil and gas company, usually you get given the job. So the job is negotiated. You're not participating in the creation of the job. You're just given the job and said, well, get on with it. So you have to live with what is being given to you.
Your sandbox.
That's right. And then you have to manage within that. So this is where you have to, when I talk about relationship building, yes, you have to have a good relationship with your client. Because at the end of the day, it's not good enough to be the hard ass, right? and fight with the client all the way. And then you're never going to get another job from him again.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is, when I said earlier on, we wanted to do a good job for the client, you should aspire to do a good job for the client.
Yes.
Right? But not to the detriment of your own company. Yeah. And that's you have to find that balance. If you do it, then it's really good. Because then, like I said, the EPC, whole point of doing EPC projects is that you can make money. Right? And so you become a value creator for your company, and you get recognized as that. So good project managers and good project directors get paid accordingly because people know that it's a hard job. You got to relate with your team because you got to know what's going on. But then you also in your company, and here again is where a lot of the smaller EPC companies fall down, you need systems in place. Particularly, you need systems on tracking and reporting. So you as Mr. Senior General Manager, or in a small company, the senior general manager is normally the owner of the company.
Correct.
You are everything, and then you have the guys. Right?
Yeah, you have the guys.
It's not a very pyramidical structure.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to look at something to say, okay, this looks like it's going fine. This looks not quite so good. Yeah. For whatever reason, and here I need to intervene. Yeah. So. Like I said, so a lot of these smaller companies, many of the small EPC companies have grown from something else. So they've either been an equipment supplier,
correct,
or something like that, a vendor of something or the other, and they've sat there and thinking, like, why am I selling this thing to John, and then he's going to make all the money by taking my light, and he's going to install it, and then he's going to get so much more money. All I get is the few % I made on selling the light. I can do that, right? I can do that. That's not hard. Yeah. Well, it is hard.
It is hard. Right?
But you only find out when you try doing it. Yeah. So because you don't have those systems in place, and the system is a euphemism actually for corporate experience, in fact, right? Because the system is put into place as a result of the lessons learned by that company.
Correct.
You say, well, we need to look at that metric.
Yeah.
Or we need to look at that metric. Yeah. This one not so important because you can't be everywhere at the same time. Yeah. So you need to know what your lights are, and when a light turns amber, to get into there before it starts going into real trouble.
Right. How difficult is it difficult for Malaysian companies to implement those systems? Because
I don't think so at all.
Okay.
I don't think so at all. I mean, oil and gas in Malaysia, with the participation of Malaysians, has been going on for 40 years, John.
Yeah.
People have got born and then had their own babies.
Yeah, in the industry, right?
Within 40 years.
Yes.
So I would think by now we do have that experience in the industry, across the industry. It's a question then of nurturing the experience, and then you learn by mistakes.
Yes.
So learning from those mistakes and putting those things in place. So I think the experience is there. The people are there.
Okay.
I was working on Bardec when in
Bardec. Oh my God.
1989, right?
Yeah.
That's 30 years ago.
Yes.
So We have the
If I'm not
people.
mistaken, I think Simon was team leader for Bardec, right?
Yes. He was, I think, the project manager.
Yes.
And I was project engineer in
Oh,
Technip.
so referring to Simon Ong, who is
Right.
now executive director at Petra. Yeah. Okay. Great. I mean, so much nuggets. Maybe I want to move on into a little bit of change when you went into aviation, Shell Aviation, and was a lot of these systems, these processes very applicable? Or was it a complete change when you went to aviation?
It was very weird because I had zero experience in aviation.
Then what?
And that's exactly the question I asked Shell when they told me they wanted me to be the general manager for, what was it? Engineering and consultancy manager for aviation. The reality is actually in aviation, it was more the consultancy.
I see.
Because aviation was doing two things at that time. I'm talking about the engineering part of Shell Aviation.
Okay.
So Shell Aviation's business actually is to sell fuel.
Ah.
Okay. So it's nothing to do actually with planes. It's the selling of fuel for planes.
Okay.
And in order to sell the fuel, you provide the infrastructure for the delivery of the fuel.
Okay.
So in other words, the tank farm, the
Pipes
pipelines,
to KLIA.
yeah, in the airport you have pipelines going underneath. You see the plane there, and there's something's plugged into that.
Ah.
The trucks. So all of that is the business of Shell Aviation.
I see.
And Shell Aviation provided consultancy to other companies
Okay.
who wanted to do that, and that was part of my role.
I see.
So to provide, to say, well, if somebody wants to start an airport, to provide the design for the whatever it is in the airport that they needed,
Okay.
and at the same time to provide improvement to the processes within aviation itself. So like better trucks, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And that kind of thing. It was it was very, very enjoyable, but it was kind of a blip because it was like 3 years of having a lot of fun, going to different airports and, seeing things like that.
Yeah.
Completely new, but it's actually very simple stuff.
And then I'm pretty sure you felt plateaued, and then you came back into E&P in a way. It's kind of like full cycle.
I felt plateaued, yes. But then I was actually, but the way that things work in Shell is that people sometimes approach you.
Yeah. Yes.
So a role came up for the general manager project post in Miri,
Okay.
general manager of projects.
Okay.
And the HR person who hired me for aviation said, this person would be a good fit. So she recommended me.
Okay.
And I applied, and then I went to see Anwar.
Okay. Oh, that time. Yes,
yeah.
Anwar was.
was the boss in Miri.
Yeah.
And we got on very well. He was chairman of Shell, I suppose, at that time.
Yeah, that time I think he was chairman of Shell, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I went to see my new boss, Marcus Droll.
Oh, Marcus. Yes.
Really,
He was based in KL that time, right, Marcus?
he was based in KL, a very brilliant man.
Yeah.
And we got on as well as anybody would get on with Marcus in the first meeting because,
Yes.
he was not a very effusive person.
Yes. Yeah. German, if I'm not mistaken, right?
And he's a mix
Yeah.
of English and German.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah. The funny thing is the word droll in English means funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so and then I joined Shell in Miri, which is really actually what I used to do. I mean, that is my skill set.
Correct. Project engineering, man.
Yeah.
So now you've come kind of like full cycle. You've been a client and an NOC and then a contractor. How does it feel? Was it like a deja vu now? You're on this side of the table and you, maybe not directly, but your subordinates have to manage contractors, manage Lumpsum. Was it a very different, now with being on both sides of the table, how was that, to you?
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I mean, first of all, when you meet your ex-contractor friends,
Exactly.
the conversations are couched a little bit differently because, you you know and I know and I know you know and you know I know. So it's a somewhat different conversation.
It's like you've been the thief and then the police and then now back to the police. No, I mean
I don't know which one is the thief and which one is the police. So, but I didn't use that. Yeah. I think it was good because from the client perspective, I think I could, and I did change the process. No, empathy is okay.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it's business. And you can change your processes to reflect your experience. So we kind of changed the way that when we appoint contractors, how we look at their track record and things like that. When we did things offshore, how we paid people and how the rate structure was put together. So at the end of the day, you want to be fair, right? That's how the business. That's what a contract actually is supposed to be.
Correct.
It's supposed to be a fair contract. So when you have sat on both sides, I think you have the opportunity to equilibrate the contract a bit based on your experience of both sides, and I think that's what we did.
And in a way, I think the contractors will be much more appreciative because in a way it says, okay, you make your money, I make my money. Both sides of the parties are happy, and then there's some sort of a continuity in the relationship rather than I do your contract, you make so much, I get the short end of the stick. I'm not going to do your contract again. In a way,
there is that.
Yes.
I think there is that. There is an understanding of what the contractor has to go through. But then also the contractor understands that I understand, and so like I said, the conversation is couched perhaps a little bit differently. There is like when you're going into the contract, you already know that you know what contingency do you carry as a client, and when do you use that contingency?
Correct.
So I mean, I don't know if people know what contingency is, but typically in a contract, you would keep some money which is not allocated to anything that you could then use when you need to do it, but you stay within your overall budget.
It's like a buffer lah. It's like a buffer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because your budget is, once your budget is set by your company, you're supposed to manage within the budget. So you give yourself a little bit there so that if the contractor runs into a bit of trouble and you feel it's all a risk balancing game, because actually at the end of the day, the contractor's failure is your failure too. So if you wanted to build a gas plant, you want to do it for a certain reason. You want to make gas. You want to sell that gas. You want to make money. And if your project is late, you are not making money, right?
That's right.
Now you can say, well, tough, Mr. Contractor. You promised to do it on a certain amount of time. I have liquidated damages. So I will whack you for liquidated damages and I don't care. But usually that's never enough because the amount that you lose is far more than you can recoup by damages. So sometimes it does make sense to say, okay, look, really, I don't have to give this to you.
Okay.
Really, I don't. But in the interest of the project, okay, you take.
I see.
If this helps.
I see.
Right? And then it's you got to look for this it's win-win is probably too strong. Not lose, not lose.
Not lose, not lose.
Let's say is the kind
lesser
of place.
of two evils.
Yeah. Is where you're aiming for.
So maybe, MJ is not from the industry. How do you think, let's say someone like MJ or an investor, how do we actually take a glimpse of that and understand, were there contingencies in place? When obviously we've talked about Sebas so many times and
Who?
Sebra then
Who?
that's a good one. So as an investor, how will we be able to either read in between the lines or be privy to this kind of information to make a judgment call to say, hey, the management of this particular company actually had this in place, had this contingency, had this experience, had the know-how to gel everything together, how from your perspective. I mean,
it's a very good question.
Yeah.
Think of a reasonably good answer.
Yeah, and while you're thinking of that, let me get you some water.
Thank you. I think you have to look at the company, first of all, and see what are they? What is their history? Okay, so let's take a company at random. Let's say take Dayang.
Right.
Okay, let's take Dayang. Dayang has got a long history of doing work offshore.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if and I say if, but they have, right? If somebody like Dayang, so maybe there was another
Yeah.
type of company, not Dayang, but like Dayang,
Mm-hmm.
said, well, we want to now move into EPC work offshore. I would look at that and say, yeah, well, yeah, why not? You know, I mean, they have the history.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. Okay, it's a different contract modality, but at least they have a very good handle on some portion or a significant portion of the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you're working offshore, most of the risk is offshore.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Waiting on weather, having the right support services around if there's, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in offshore, it's all about time, right?
Yes.
And when you go offshore, you're going with a big barge and tugs and, and all of this costs money. And when you go to the platform and if you can't work, that's money out of your pocket. If you're doing EPIC,
Correct.
If you're in a lump sum thing. If you're on rates, you say, well, okay, too bad, boss, I can't work, and you charge me standby or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
waiting on weather time or
So I think first of all, you've got to look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the history of the company? Is what they're now venturing into aligned with what they're doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
And
do they have a history of doing things successfully for a start? So if on the whole they do things well,
yeah.
then you got to look at them and say, well, yeah, I think you look at Dialogue.
Yeah.
Right. Dialogue started from a very small piping
Precisely.
contractor, and now they're a very successful company. But I think Dialogue again, first of all, had very good people in charge of the company.
Yes.
Yep. You know who you are.
Yeah.
Good people, you know who you are, right?
Yeah.
And have grown, I think, into a reputable and reliable company. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they grew doing things that they knew, right?
Yes.
So they started doing piping and then they moved into tanks and stuff like that. I think a logical progression of what they were doing. So when you look at this kind of company, you think, yeah, like everything, the company is growing. It's growing at a steady pace, and why not?
Would you say that when looking into the history, because we're looking for clues as an investor, because you mentioned just now earlier about how Technip grew organically, which meant that it has certain advantages for someone who, you gave the example of the left-hand, right-hand issue. So do you think that if I'm looking at an oil and gas company and I say, okay, this is a reliable company because of perhaps the speed at which they move into these verticals or horizontals or whatever term you want to use, versus perhaps you would stay away from companies that make big leaps, like they were doing something small and then suddenly they're taking on tasks or projects that is a logical progression, but then is a big leap. Would you say that that's a signal for you to say that, okay, maybe the management can't really judge how to progress the company sustainably?
You got to think about it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's essentially a risk assessment. Now, the problem is it depends on what the leap was, I think.
Okay.
So you can grow in size of the work you do, but it doesn't necessarily mean the complexity of what you do changes. So let's say you're making car parks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I make a car park which is 100 square meters. Okay. And I become very good at making car parks of 100 square meters. Now I get given a car park of 1 million square meters. But the chances are I can do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the same work.
It's just multiplication. Right?
Yeah, it's the same work. But if you look at oil and gas and petrochemical projects, is not the same.
Yeah, that's right.
So because what's happening is that the level of complexity, the number of moving parts that you have to then manage increases dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's different things that you might not have done before. So if you were, a company that used to make platforms, you were a yard.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you want to become an epic contractor.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
well, okay, it could work, and
In
you could
theory,
make
yeah.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
All right, and then probably as an investor, you'll be terribly happy because your company made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, the money, you get it back in a dividend or your whatever. Actually, I rarely see that. The price goes up when they get the job, not when they finish the job.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? So when they get the job, it's the price goes up. Nobody talks about when we finish the job.
Whether the project is implemented successfully, whether it makes money, that's a different story altogether.
It's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Not mentioning any particular names, right? But yeah. So I think as an investor, first of all, you question whether as an investor, EPC contracting is where you should be putting your money at all. But okay, so you say you wanted to and you were comparing, then I think you do need to look at the leap in complexity rather than in terms of size. To me, is a bigger indicator of the challenges to manage a project,
Okay.
or not necessarily even complexity of a project, to do work in a different country. Okay.
Very good point.
So the challenges and risks and everything that's associated with doing work that you might know how to do perfectly well in Malaysia might be completely different if you choose to do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I can speak from bitter experience.
From China, right?
No. China was fine. Australia.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh yes, I remember you had one experience. Yeah.
So we as Technip, we had a project to do in Australia.
Yes.
And it was a very similar project to projects we had done in Malaysia, and we thought we could do it very well. And we went to Australia and we didn't do it very well. Yes.
You got hammered in a way, right? I was in a yard where I think the leftover remnants of the projects was actually still there. Actually, if we're referring to the same one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not blaming anybody, nor am I blaming myself. But what I'm saying is that as a company, when we're talking about because we're talking about investing in organization,
Correct.
right? If a company that has always worked in Malaysia, let's say, now decides to work in a completely different environment. So let's say Australia, because Australia is heavily unionized.
Yes. Legislation is different.
Legislation, yeah. Or if I don't know, let's pick a country at random, Mexico or somewhere like that, right? I mean, if I was asked to go and do a project in Mexico, well, I haven't got a clue, right? Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I know how things work in Malaysia.
Yeah.
I don't know. In Mexico, are there unions there?
Yeah.
Are there people that I need to be paid off? Otherwise, they come and shoot me.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Sorry. I take that back.
Yeah.
Okay, I take that back.
Yeah.
No, but I'm sure I would love to go and visit Mexico someday. But you hear some stories,
Stories.
right? No, but all I'm saying is that your risk profile is completely different. And when you, as a company, decide to take on work with a completely different risk profile, then as an investor, you got to think, well, do these people have the capacity to manage it? Especially if it's a big project.
Yes. I think to espouse what you just said, we have Malaysian players that go outside.
Yes.
And some are transparent. Some, when they hit the wall, then they'll tell you lah. And I think there's this company who does a lot of work in the not so much Middle East. I think more recently in Brazil, Latin American countries, and they are the CEO has come out and says that we undertook risks that we didn't understand well enough. I think hindsight is always perfect 2020, but maybe again from an investor's perspective, what are the other things besides what you mentioned? Scaling in complexity, doing it in another country. How else can investors prepare when they see, someone keep on saying, our revenue base is not Malaysia, but exports, we are very... does this send a red signal or red sign to you?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, you got to grow.
Yeah.
So you've got this two-edged sword, right?
Yes.
So here you're a Malaysian company. You have done well in Malaysia, and now you want to expand.
Yes.
So how are you going to do it? And it makes good sense that you want to international. That's how companies become international. Like
Correct.
So not necessarily a red signal, but I think you have to look critically at, well, are you going off to do a project which is a huge project in a place you've never done before, doing a thing which you've never done before? It's fraught with disaster.
Correct.
All the
It's like
things are
landmines all over the place, right?
You think, man, okay, if you manage that, good luck to you. But the chances are you're going to have some trouble, right? Or are you going off and you're going to start doing some smaller work in the Middle East somewhere or something like that, where the contracting environment is quite regulated, and that the way that things, it's easier to work. I worked in Brazil when I was at the Aviation. We had a project in Sao Paulo to put another pipeline from the fuel farm to the airport, because they only had one. So if that pipeline failed, Sao Paulo airport would have no fuel.
Wow.
And that was just before the Olympics and World Cup and all of that.
Wow.
So we were ready to go, and then I went there, and then my guy there said, Kamesam, we cannot start because all the piping that we're supposed to connect to now, the contractor has been sacked because of corruption. And now the army is moving in, and until they do that, we can't move. Right? So, okay, if you had taken that as a lump sum project.
Yeah. Wow.
Now you're in a bit of a corner, right?
Yeah.
If you're not known. So maybe if you're smart and you'd gone there and said, no, I'm not going to do it on lump sum, I'm going to do it on rates. And contingent on all of these things being available, I commit my schedule. Right? And you shared that with the market.
Yes.
Okay. So you went to the market and said, yeah, we got this great job in Brazil, but we are going to show you, the investors, that we're very comfortable with doing this work because. I think then as an investor you would say, yeah, great.
The caveats are all spelled out. Caveat this.
I'm not sure how often companies do it. I think sometimes they do it better than others.
Yeah.
But in an environment where a competitive environment where people are going to say, well, do I put my money here or do I put my money there? I think the company that came out and demonstrated that it could manage its risk would probably attract the investors better.
Correct.
Yeah.
I have to ask this question,
Please.
right? Because you've been all over the globe, right?
Yep.
And that has to do with working in all these different countries. Like you gave us a glimpse of what's it like working in Australia, and you said you had a good experience in China. Obviously, we probably don't have the time to go into every single country that you've operated in, or maybe we do. But what would you say are some of the highlights? And it's up to you whether you want to share the negative parts of certain countries. Like I know you shared the part about Brazil, how the army can get involved in your work. So yeah, because I think for a lot of people listening, they don't have a clue, right, on the political risk side of
very good question, MJ.
of doing EPCC work, whether as a client or not. So yeah, maybe you can share with us what it's like working in all these different countries. What has your experience been?
I think Australia was tough. And Australia was tough because we chose to do a EPC lump sum project in an environment where nobody did it.
Oh.
And the first question the client asked me when we were doing negotiation was, how come you're quoting EPC lump sum when all the Australian contractors don't want to? And
he was already giving you a hint, right?
we said, no, we can do this.
Because you've probably done this before in the
Malaysia.
past, so you probably
In
thought
Malaysia,
that you could
not
do
in
it.
Australia. Right. So that was probably not such a highlight.
Yeah.
But that project had highlights too, because in that project, during that time, it was when the commodity prices were changing very rapidly.
I see.
So we managed to engineer and procure the project within the budget when the validity of quotes was 1 week. So you want to buy pipe, like I said, you buy it today, I give you 1 week validity because after that the price will change. Wow. But so it was a very satisfying project in the sense that we managed to engineer things in a way to offset that. China was great. China was a lovely place to work. Great people, very different challenges.
Regulators? How were the regulators and legislators?
Regulators were actually good.
Okay.
They were strict, but they were very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable. On the PetroChina side, when you talk to the guy is very upfront about what he wants, why he thinks you should do this, why and the challenges, I think, were very fair challenges. You know, so we talked earlier about PSCs, right?
Yes.
And field development.
Yes, right.
So we would come with a particular plan, and he'd say, "But you promised guys that you want to do this much, so why are you doing this?"
Yeah.
But he would listen. So I thought China was fine. We did some great work in Sichuan.
Yeah.
With safety. Changing the way that things were built and stuff like that. They were very manual. Right? Very, very manual. Everything was manpower.
Okay.
So
Brute force.
yeah. So to me, China, a big highlight. I liked it very much. Aviation was much fun because it was a global job.
I see.
So we had projects in South Africa, we had projects in the Middle East, we had projects in Europe. We built a fuel farm in City Airport in London. We had to build it inside a hangar because they didn't want people to see that things were going on and then complain. So it was a very, very interesting job.
Okay.
I think most of my highlights actually in Malaysia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, working for Petronas, or Petronas as the client. We did the one at that time, one of the largest PVC plants.
Okay. In where was this?
In Kerteh.
In Kerteh, okay.
And we did it even on time, under budget. Yep. So, yeah.
Great.
Nice.
Yeah. Maybe now we segue into are you an investor in oil and gas? Would you invest in any oil and gas company in Malaysia?
I am an investor by default.
Okay.
Because I have Shell shares.
Oh. Vested. Is it vested already? Or
Vested.
Okay.
But I still have the other. Shell is a good share.
Yeah.
Keep it.
Keep
Even
it.
though it's gone down, they pay a dividend every year.
Yeah.
Very faithfully.
Yeah.
And the price will go. Oil and gas is a cyclical industry. The price
Correct.
will go up again.
Correct. But any Malaysian players are apparently, you mentioned Dialogue, great management, but
Am I allowed to say what I would put money into?
yeah, I think so. But we have a disclaimer,
Yeah.
like for
Just a
every-
disclaimer, it's not financial advice, it's just your own opinion, and go speak to your professional advisor for investment advice.
Yeah. So normally for every video, we also say if we own or not. So like in this case, I own Dialogue, I own Yinsen. So as long as we are upfront about it, it's fine. So
I don't own Dialogue, but I've thought about Dialogue. And I still think that Dialogue is okay. I think it depends how you invest, okay, why you invest.
Yeah.
So I'm not the put it in the morning and then look in the afternoon investor.
yeah.
All right. I prefer to say I put it in the morning and I look in 1 year. Right. Historically, my record of investing has not been very good.
Okay.
Except in the last few years when the market went down.
Okay.
Remember at the time when COVID and all first started.
Correct.
Then I said, well, let me go and look at dividend-bearing companies
Ah.
that have all gone down by more than 30, 40%.
Okay.
And then I chose to buy into those companies. Oil and gas, I didn't buy into at that time because I already have Shell shares. So
I see.
I felt my portfolio was already
Too
quite
concentrated.
balanced in terms of investment in the oil and gas sector. But if I were, I think, I think Dialogue is a sound company.
Okay.
I like Dayang actually.
Ah.
I've worked with Dayang before.
Okay.
Dayang's core business is maintenance. You always have to do maintenance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think they have a good management who have been in the company for a long time.
Great.
So I do like them as a company, and working with them, you get a good feel for them.
They know their stuff lah. Put it this way lah.
I would think about Bumi Yamada.
Okay.
I would think about them. I think their price is now quite low, right?
Yeah, but so here comes the question. I was asking before the podcast whether you had much experience in evaluating an FPSO project, and you said not that much. But would it be fair for me to say that the characteristics that you mentioned earlier about how to be a good EPCC contractor, how to manage projects well in an EPCC, were the same criteria actually apply to an FPSO player, in your opinion? I mean, no right.
More so. Because the typically FPSO projects fail because of the integration between the oil part and the ship part,
Ah,
right?
okay.
So I don't know whether you read today. There's been all sorts of issues with Prelude.
Prelude has been, I when I was a Shell employee, right, I was very proud to announce, Shell's going to be the first whatever. PLFLNG 1 came out. PLFLNG 2 came out. And here we have kind of like Shell being the pioneer who pioneered this idea, and still we can't get it right, So
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's
I heard that they have some electrical problems and stuff like that, and I don't know whether the electrical problems are ship problems, the integration of the ship problems with the topside problem. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that many FPSO projects have failed because many of them aren't new builds; they're conversions. Anyway.
Correct.
So you go and buy. Basically, what that means is you go and buy a tanker or something from somewhere, and then you strip it, and then you convert it so that it stores oil with some production facilities as well.
Correct.
Yeah, and doing that is seems to be, like I said, I don't have a lot of experience in doing it myself, but historically it seems to be an issue.
I see.
So then, if you have experience in all of that, and sometimes they're new builds.
Yes.
So sometimes you actually build everything together, the
From
ship
scratch.
and the thing all from scratch, and then it's probably more likely to succeed.
Yeah.
So that's where I think then companies like Bumi, who have got experience in the game, and what's the other company?
SBM.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Modec.
Or Modec.
Yeah.
These companies now, I think they know how to do it.
Okay.
They know how to do it. And the beauty of their model, I'm talking from past history, I don't know whether it still is, that they generally tended to long lease their fleet.
Correct.
So it's just, once it's leased, it's kaching,
Yeah.
The money just comes in.
Correct.
And you don't have to worry. So all this business about engineering overruns and all of that, it never used to be such a big deal for the FPSO guys because they knew, okay, you're 1 year late.
Correct.
But for the next 20 years, you're going to make money on this.
Correct. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And then, so good. Unfortunately, when the price all went to crap, a lot of people then said, look, take it back. Right?
Yeah.
We don't want it anymore. And so there you are.
Yeah.
But I think Bumi is cheap, and this game is a cyclical game, the oil and gas game.
Yeah.
So it's always been every 7 to 10 years, there's this big crash in oil and gas prices.
Correct.
And everybody cries and they say, the world is going to end and all of that.
Actually, that's true. Everyone I speak to that has been in oil and gas or whatever, they usually start their story. I started my career when oil price was very bad, or they're like midway through their career, or rather 2 years in, I feel I was getting sacked. And they always start with that story, oil price was really bad, back in my day. So I'm wondering, the 40-year, a 20-year, a 30-year, 50-year, all saying that the oil price was bad.
Because it always was at one time. It always was.
Yeah.
So I think in my case, I've been through three crashes, right? And it will recover. It's just cyclical.
Yeah.
So, this one is, I think, perfect storm. You had COVID and you had, the shale gas issues, the Saudis pushing the prices down and all of that. So everything depressed the prices, but now they're coming back up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now, Mr. Omicron and what have you, and that has, messed with it a little bit. But it's to me, the price seems to be whatever people want it to be.
Great.
I guess I have to ask now about your thoughts on, the ESG issue, right? ESG is such a big thing now in the investing community. It's almost as if if a company is ESG compliant, the price is going to go up, and then the reverse is true. If it's not very ESG compliant, a lot of these oil and gas companies, then obviously it's not good for the share price. So, part of the reason why oil prices have been beaten down, apart from the low oil prices, is also the ESG theme, right? So as an insider, right, like what do you think about this overall? And is because you're doing consultancy work as well, what sort of advice will you give to all these companies? Will you say that, hey, don't go against the trend, or just stick at it? Oil and gas is still going to be here, and all this is just noise, and these too shall pass.
No, it's not noise. I don't think it's noise. I think it is a significant issue, and I think it is. It's not going to go away.
Yes.
It's not going to go away. It's going to get more and more important in the way that people. Well, you see, the problem is, it's not the retail investor.
Yeah.
That's the issue here.
It's the institutional investor.
It's the yeah. So your pension funds and your whatever, who actually drive the thinking.
Yeah.
I think
That's right.
you could argue that they are. It is the retail investor who influences how pension funds think, perhaps. But the reality is that corporate governance and environmental consciousness,
social,
all of that, it can't go away, right? That particular genie is out of the bottle.
Yeah. You
right?
can't stuff it back in.
You can't say, well, yeah, okay, in 2021 we talked a lot about the environment, but next year we don't give two hoots about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's never going to go away. But to be fair to the oil and gas companies, I think most, with one standout exception, right, are trying their best to confront the issue. Because you have to look at the reality of things as well. It's all very well to say ESG,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
all of that, but you still need oil.
Yes.
And you will still need oil for the next 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, right? You can't get away from it. So the question then is, how do you balance out the two things? I think the oil companies, when I joined Shell, their thinking was, look, let's not look too much at all of this alternate energy stuff and all of that. Let's focus on oil and do that efficiently on oil and gas. I think now that cycle has changed a bit. Now they are looking at alternative energies and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you got beyond petroleum,
Yeah.
right? So there's I think a deep consciousness at the corporate level that something needs to be done there. It's more the E, right? Because the SG, I think the bigger
Solvable. Those are more
companies,
solvable.
solvable, and they do.
Yeah.
And they do. Yeah, I mean, we have to be fair to them. But the question I suppose I would pose to the environmental activist is, that's fine, okay? You don't want oil, but you drive a car,
Yeah.
right? Okay, your car is a battery operated car, but every other damn thing in that car needs oil.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
right.
Exactly.
The leather seat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All of it needs oil, right?
Yeah.
You have a steel mill that's producing the steel for your engine.
Yeah.
Well, where does the energy for that come
Yeah.
from?
Exactly.
Yeah. So of course you have to build up your alternative energy profile, and the more you do, of course, the more you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But oil ain't going away anytime soon.
Precisely.
So then the question is, okay, what then do you want? Assuming that you're going to be having to still produce oil and gas, what's going to satisfy, let's say, the activists, but it's not really the activists, because it's much deeper than that now.
Correct.
So what's going to satisfy the average person that the environmental concerns are being addressed to the best that it's possible, while at the same time allowing you to maintain your lifestyle?
Something like an RLAB concept, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
But do you think, like, in terms of the activists, that it has perhaps, obviously this is not in your control, but do you think that it has swung perhaps too hard or too fast against the oil majors or the oil and gas industry?
No,
Or do you think it's a
don't.
fair punch?
I think it's a fair punch.
Right.
I think that honestly, without people making a lot of noise, that you won't even get, the momentum is such that you need a lot of effort to make a little change. And without all of this, you won't get the change.
That's right.
I understand.
It's like at one time I was told, Karpal Singh, he was asked, why is it every time you go to Parliament, you make all this noise? It's always so loud, blah, 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 blah. He said, well, because if I go there and I'm soft, nobody will listen. So
true.
Yeah. So he goes there and he's this real lion and he roars and
The
and
tiger of Jelutong.
a little bit of the roar gets through. It works, and I think that's exactly what's happened today. And I think it's a good thing. Of course, I work in the industry, but we're all human beings and we all want a pleasant environment, and we want to make sure that we have a planet that's going to last a bit longer than us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can do it. The technology is there. It's a question of effort.
Yes.
Right.
And will.
Yeah. So and I think if now those companies that are doing it will benefit from it because it's an issue of concern. It's out there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Probably we want to come back to Malaysia and talk about the PSC regimes and even state-owned oil and gas companies. So you know where I'm going with this.
Really? Okay.
In your opinion,
We'll say probably unpopular things that will never get another job.
Do you think that, you've traveled the globe, worked in different, China, Australia and all that. Do you think Petronas is fair with their PSC regime?
Yes, next question.
Okay, so what is a PSC?
Yes.
All right. So essentially what we have is we have a national asset, which is oil and gas in the ground.
Yeah.
We want to extract that asset to the benefit of all Malaysians.
Okay.
That's the elevator speech.
Yes.
In order to do that, we need people who are willing to come in and take risks to, first of all, establish that there is actually oil there, where the oil is, how much it is.
Yep.
Right? And then once we've done that, then to spend money on putting in infrastructure and people and whatever so that we can harvest that thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I have a piece of land. Okay, I think that land probably might be good for growing durian, but I don't know. But in order to get to that land, I need to build a road.
Okay.
And that road is going to cost me, $100,000. I don't have $100,000. And then I don't even know, but somewhere nearby, there's a durian farm and it seems to be quite good. But I don't know whether that particular land that I've got is any good or not. So I need to go there and I need to take some, I don't know what durian farmers do, but okay. I need to go and take
Soil
some
sample.
samples of the soil and whatever to see that it's suitable for growing durian.
Yeah.
So assuming I spend money on building a road, I spend money on taking soil samples. If the soil sample is good, I need to know how many durian trees I can build here. Because if I have to spend a lot of money and I can only grow 3 trees, there's no point. Right? So I need to do something. I maybe need to test for a while, grow a few trees, whatever it is. And then I need to go wholesale if it's good into putting it into there and all of that. And then I can harvest my durian for the next 20 years. Yay.
Yeah.
All right. So as the owner of the land, I'm saying to you, hey, I got this great land here, why don't you come and plant durian trees? As the potential planter, I'm saying, yeah, but it's going to cost me a lot of money to do all of this. And at the end of the day, there might be nothing there. I might end up having to just say thank you very much and leave, right?
Yeah.
So we enter into a deal. But what I want to say is, this land is my land forever. It's going to be my land, right? So I'm never going to sell the land to you because it's a national asset. It's been in my family for generations, and my grandfather told me never to sell this land.
Okay.
Okay, so I have to keep the land. So fair enough. Okay, let's enter into a deal where I'll undertake the cost for all of this.
Okay.
And if it so happens, then since you have given me the land, right, for 20 years, we will share the durians in some ratio.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your PSC. Yeah, so your PSC, Petronas being the custodian, will say, here's a certain amount of acreage.
Yeah.
We think looks okay.
Okay.
Next door, so and so is producing.
Yeah.
You interested or not?
Yeah.
And people will come and they will compete. Usually there's some sort of competition.
Yeah.
And you enter into a petroleum sharing contract.
Yeah.
And all it is it's agreement between Petronas and a contractor or more than one contractor or possibly even part of Petronas, so Carigali, so it all becomes very mixed up
Yeah.
on what you're going to do, when you're going to do it,
Yeah.
and how you're going to share the profits. On the basis that if there's nothing there, then tough luck.
Correct.
Well, not all.
Yeah.
Not all. We say PSCs. There are many, many different flavors of PSCs in different countries of the world.
Yeah.
Is the PSC in Malaysia a good PSC or bad PSC? As long as people come and are still willing to do it, yes.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So it's a buyer's market, seller's market. Okay.
Yes.
If I put something on the market, nobody wants to buy it, then probably the terms of my contract are too onerous.
Yes.
And I should go to Mauritania or Brazil or wherever it is and work there.
Yeah.
So, like typically, I'm not fully au fait with what it is today. And there are also now RSCs and things
Yeah.
like that.
This. I was looking at a sliding scale. Kamesam was like, RSC is a sliding scale where in which there's more risk, but obviously then you can claim more in terms of cost, and the profit sharing will be more because of the risk. But I think the point that you brought up, and I want to allude more towards, oil is kind of like a black curse to a lot of countries. So if you look at countries like Mexico, they do have some way that you bring in foreign investors and all that. And then Brazil, with the scandal of Petrobras. Do you think that Petronas, I have my own biased opinion, which is I think they did a good job. Do you think the regulators are doing a good job, from your opinion, in managing our country's assets so far?
I do. Well, you can say it's a black curse, but if you look at Norway,
Oh, yeah, exactly.
they're sitting on $1 trillion of corporate sovereign wealth fund.
Correct.
They seem quite happy to me.
Correct.
So do I think Petronas is doing a good job? I do think they're doing a good job. Nobody is perfect in this world, right? But yes, of course, if you compare to people like, those particular countries, I think, have issues with corruption. And I think it's a separate issue from how they planned to develop the industry.
Yeah.
On the whole, I think Petronas as a regulator is as good as any other regulator and probably better than many. Yeah.
Great. What do you think of states now trying to take back control of their mineral rights? Because now with Sarawak coming up with Petros, it's kind of like opening up the floodgates. Suddenly Sabah wants to,
It's a challenge to the establishment.
Yes.
From the outside.
It's a political problem now. Yeah. So it's a political problem. I think Sabah and Sarawak are quite different issues compared to states in Peninsular Malaysia.
Correct.
Simply because of their status within our federation.
Right? Correct.
What do I think of it? I think that it all comes down to dollars and cents. So I think if the Sarawakians and Sabahans felt that they were getting a fair deal from Petronas, I cannot understand why they would want to do anything.
Precisely.
So clearly, it's a reaction to a belief that I can do better for myself than you are doing for me.
Yeah.
Can or cannot, I don't know.
Correct.
Right? You need, it's not so easy to do these things. You need resources. And
Exactly.
Yeah, experience, I don't think is an issue because there are tons of experienced Sarawakians and Sabahans.
Yes.
Right? So I don't think there's an issue there. But it's the question of resources. And I guess the other question is, since you've already had Petronas going on for so long, putting my mediator's hat on,
Yes.
I would say, would it not be better to come together and create a, I not say win-win, not lose deal,
Correct.
where if not both parties are equally happy, both parties are equally unhappy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know whether that answers your question.
No, I think it answers it perfectly because
That's my personal view.
I wanted your mediator's perspective because you see, if you talk to the camp where I'm Sarawakian, and if you talk to those extremists, they'll obviously say, "Oh no, we have to fight for rights." I speak to a lot of my classmates, right?
It's like their land, you know.
Yeah, it's like their land, right?
I think it becomes emotional.
Yes, yes. And on the other hand, it says, hey, but you signed, you agree to the PDA in 1974, and combining resources at that point of time, combining technical expertise under one roof made sense, right? And developing the expertise as one, as a nation. But I think like what you pointed out rightly so is that if they felt that they had the right end or the fair share of their stick, I don't think this issue would have solved. And I think going forward, rather than being at loggerheads and trying to show who has the bigger, machoism or if a win-win situation could be developed, from me personally, I think developing the nation's resources as one is better rather than having state regulation. It's like I'm coming to do, if I'm let's say Royal Dutch Shell, and I come, if I drill in Kemaman, and the safety requirements, the PSC regulation, everything, and then if I drill in Sarawak, it's totally different. It brings up costs,
Yeah, and then the talent actually is the same group of people.
The same
right?
group of people, but then because of the structure
Exactly.
of which the legislation, it brings up cost to me. And I feel that, great that Kamesam is a mediator. You can still make money if you're willing to come to the negotiation table and, everyone is fair to each other.
I think it is a question of trying to find out how you can make the cake bigger for
very
each
good.
other.
Yes.
Not so much how do I divide up this present cake. Yeah.
Yes.
But John, so speaking to your point about people believe it's their land and all of that,
Yeah.
it's just mathematics, right? So when you look at the amount of money that comes out of Sarawak from oil revenue,
Yeah.
and you look at towns like Kuching and Miri and the infrastructure and stuff like that,
Yes.
and you compare it to Kuala Lumpur and Johor Bahru, let's say, right? I'm just saying it's different.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's different. And I think that it is, I quite understand why nationalistic Sarawakians should question why it should be different.
Correct.
Yeah? And I believe that, but it looks as though it's going in the right way, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do. It's so funny, Kamesam, because a lot of our former colleagues are just Sarawakians and then they just move. It's like they just change the coverall. Because the resources are the same. I mean, the skills you develop and everything is the same. I think, as you rightly pointed out, it's just dollars and cents. If there is not such a big disparity, I don't think this would even come up. But I do hope they come to an amicable solution.
Largely dollars and cents.
Yes.
I think, of course, there is this whole, as you said, national pride.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Sarawak's national pride.
Yes.
That this is our stuff and we should have the say
Yes.
on how it's managed.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if, again, just me speaking,
Yeah.
if at the end of the day, you struck a deal where you said, yeah, fine, okay, Sarawak, it's yours.
Yes.
Yeah, you manage it, whatever it is, but you give this much to the federal government and you're happy.
Correct.
I think the federal government would be perfectly happy too.
Exactly.
So,
Because you are taking on the risk,
Yeah.
If you're developing and everything, you are also taking on the risk as well, is it? Yeah.
well, that's how you decide to apportion the risk and the. So you're right that it's not so clear cut. There's a lot of emotion and history
Yeah.
there as well. But to answer your original question,
Yeah.
is the state the best entity to manage that when you already have had an entity that has been doing that for
Let me see, 1974, so you're talking about
Yeah.
40 years, almost 40
Yeah.
years.
then all things being equal, why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Duplication of resources and
Yeah.
all that kind of, yeah.
I think part of the thing that probably contributes, I don't know if you agree, is actually the inefficient tax structure for the whole country in terms of we don't tax people properly, right?
I think you're
removing-
spot on to that.
Because, like, for example, why do we need? So, I mean, oil and gas is about 13% of the exports now in Malaysia. So why are we like so reliant on oil and gas? Well, part of the reason is probably because maybe the removal of the GST or maybe all these different tax sources, and also the fact that our biggest exports have actually very low taxation, which is actually the semiconductors.
Correct.
We don't tax them a lot because we need them to grow, right?
Yeah.
So because of all that, then that any the average 10 to 15 billion shortfall has to come from
Oil and gas.
Petronas. Perhaps that's the reason. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, this one is beyond my area. of
Yeah.
competence.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I want to say right now, I want to say nothing against the income tax department. I love you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
You are great.
Yeah. I think as implementers and all, I think they've been doing a great job. I think it's more of like what MJ pointed out, the structure in which because you see, a lot of people when they look at a government budget, they only look from their perspective, which is
Yeah. What am I getting?
Yep. But
Right.
where I think the struggle will be is that if you look at the government from a business entity's perspective, they need money to run. And I think the point MJ is trying to bring out is that the money to run, where are the sources of money and the structure in which
Yeah.
as income tax, right? You know, I can't remember the specific number, but I know a very low proportion of people pay income tax. And that's because of wage problems. So we could go on for a day whether Malaysia should raise their income tax, wages and all that. But I think because of that tax structure, it actually does not benefit the oil and gas industry. I think that's the point he's trying to make, because semiconductor industry, they get pioneer status, Kamesam. They get 10 years.
Or GMP or
yeah,
5+5.
They don't pay taxes for the first 10 years. But oil and gas, the moment it comes out of the ground, you've got PITA, you've got all these kind of things, right? And
Because I guess the issue is the Sarawakians are not getting enough.
Yeah.
Right? And if there are other taxation, I mean, there's another conversation to be had, I guess, if assuming we get all the good tax revenue, whether they will still want to give the Sarawakian. That's another separate issue, right? I don't know. But I think we are running a bit about time.
yeah,
let's
let's I just probably want to wrap up in the sense that for Kamesam, being in the oil and gas industry, being a mediator today, right, and seeing both ends of the spectrum of the industry, what is your hope for the industry? What's your wish list for the industry, actually?
For the oil and gas industry.
Yes, for the oil and gas industry.
To be quite honest, I actually what I would like to see is less Petronas. I was going to say this. Okay, okay. For the industry as a whole, I think it's going in the right direction. You can see different forms of development. You can see technological innovation, and Petronas is doing some very clever things.
Okay.
Yep. So I think we're going in the right way. I think the industry would benefit a lot by figuring out some way to increase the competence of people at the entry and mid-level corporate, at the entry and mid-level corporate level, in terms of companies. So to me, there's a lack of competency and experience and stuff at that level. Those guys come.
Why do you think so? I agree with you. And
Why I think so is what I see. So what do I do? Okay, now today my job is I do adjudication.
yeah,
And adjudication is essentially judging disputes that companies have with each other.
yeah,
Construction related, and some of which are oil and gas. I do arbitration,
okay,
and it's the same thing, just a bit bigger, right? And I do claims management.
okay,
So this is what I do today.
yeah,
And what I see many times is the problems that have arisen arise from a lack of competence. I'm not saying that people are, how should I say it? They're not stupid,
yeah,
right? These are intelligent, hardworking people, but they lack certain competencies. Let me put it. That's a better way of putting it, I guess. So it would be good if there was some way of them acquiring these competencies easily, relatively cheaply, because the oil and gas industry is a very low margin industry. So when you're in there, sending people for training generally is a bit,
painful.
Unlike the major companies, they do it.
Yes,
Yeah, and there's no issue with that.
But it's
the
a smaller
companies, you're not a one-man show, but maybe a three-man show. To send your project manager off for training course or something and pay for that, it's a bit hard. So Petronas seems to have got very involved in running. Petronas started off with a mission to develop the oil industry in Malaysia and to
Yeah.
nurture talent and all of that. And I think it's done that very well.
Yes.
I just wonder sometimes whether Petronas creating companies that are profit centers in themselves has diluted that purpose a little.
Understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. What do you think by going further upstream, meaning in the sense that do you think we are getting not talk about even middle entry or middle level skilled labor? Do you think that the education system today even encourages that? Because I don't know if you heard this before. They said that Sarawakian scaffolders are among the best in the world.
I
Right.
can believe it. Yeah.
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 And yet, as a parent, when your child is more inclined to do skilled labor work, is actually frowned upon.
Vocational work.
Yeah, vocational work.
Yeah.
Do you think that is the government doing enough, or it's just that people not aware, or that?
One is awareness and two is money,
Okay.
how much you're paid. So like, I'll give you an example. When I was in Australia
Okay.
doing my project, the guy carrying the cement
Okay.
for the guy doing the brickwork.
Okay.
So
Wow.
not even the guy doing the brickwork. I'm talking about the,
Wow.
the guy's assistant. He was getting paid about $40, $50 an hour, Australian. Yeah. Probably. Yeah, right? Yeah. And on top of that, all the allowances and blah, 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 blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. So it was perfectly fine and people were very happy. And if you are an electrician, and nowadays I understand, like in Australia, in the building industry, if you want to renovate your house, you have to wait about a year for somebody to come to give you the time.
Wow.
So, and you pay. You do pay. I think that brings some challenges in itself. Okay, so I think the problem in Australia is because you get paid so well doing these
yes.
vocational jobs
Yes.
that really I got to go to university for 4 years and study to be an engineer and all of that. And when I come out, I get paid less than my friend who was started as an apprentice electrician.
Correct.
Yeah?
Correct.
I know, right? So then I think they've lost the balance a bit.
Yeah.
But in Malaysia, how much do you get paid as an apprentice electrician?
Oh my God. I don't think it's enough for minimum wage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So who's responsible for that?
Yes.
Again,
we can't solve world hunger.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But that's got to be what will drive people to do more vocational things, right?
Yeah.
When I say vocational, I mean to become a qualified electrician. It's not like it's easy. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, or an instrument technician or whatever it is. These are so one is the pay, two is I think the industry probably doesn't sell that enough as a potential. So it would be, I suppose I speak about things that are really outside my knowledge set. So I don't know whether Shell and Petronas and Hess and all of these people go around to local schools and say, guys, really think about being a scaffolder because it's going to be a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you know what a scaffolder is? You know how a scaffolder is because your uncle or whatever used to be one.
Yeah.
And then he says, hey, this is not a bad job. Why don't you try, right?
Correct.
Right? So whether you're pushing this in the educational system, I don't know, but I doubt.
Yeah. Okay.
I doubt. So from when I was in Shell, you would be tapping on the universities for your internship program and stuff like that.
Correct.
How much you're going down into the next layer, not sure. And this is where, again, I think companies like Petronas, they're very, there was all this focus on vendor development and
VDPs,
stuff like that.
the VDP programs. And actually, coming back to the company, like you said, Dayang, actually, Dayang would be better placed because that's where their direct resources will actually be, because there, rather than Petronas handling the welders and the scaffolders, it's people like Dayang that helps, develop this market. Because
But you have to give visibility to it, right? You have to show that the thing exists, that it's a good job.
Yeah.
Of course, the other problem in Malaysia is our power distance issues.
Oh yeah.
So the status.
Yes.
So what are you? I'm a
Rigger.
arbitrator. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
You must be a great smart guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you? Oh, I'm a rigger. Oh, yeah, you work offshore. Yeah. It's not like So this guy comes and says, John, your daughter comes, Daddy, I want you to meet my fiance. He's a brain surgeon and studying. Oh, very good. Your second
That's
daughter
true.
comes, John, I want you to meet my fiance. He's an apprentice electrician. Right?
that's true.
Not quite the same,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
Right? You
exactly.
don't look at it quite the same.
Yeah.
So somehow socially, that's got to change too.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I
Yeah.
think, where can people find you?
Do you want to be found?
Do
in
you
the
want to be
first
found
place?
first or not?
Well, I'll say what I do.
Yeah.
So I do arbitration.
Okay.
I do adjudication, so arbitration means if you have there's a commercial problem between two companies, then they look for somebody to be the judge in
Okay.
between. I do adjudication, but probably in the context of this discussion, I also do claims management.
Okay.
We have a website,
Mm-hmm.
so I can point you at that.
You give us
website
the link. We'll
afterwards.
put it
Yeah.
in the comment section. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably on LinkedIn. Do you want to
I
be
am
found
on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
LinkedIn?
you can look me up on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Too.
Yeah.
If you need something, happy to talk always.
Okay. Okay.
I'm also a mediator. I don't do as much
family
mediation.
mediation? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, if you have a problem in your family, I'm very sorry for you, and I wish you all the best. But call John.
Yeah.
So I would like to do more mediation. I think mediation should be bigger in Malaysia. It's not.
Okay.
So if you feel that you have a problem that you would like mediated rather than solved through a dispute resolution format, I'd be happy to help there.
Great. MJ?
Yeah, I think
Last words.
I definitely enjoyed this a lot. I hope everyone listening did. No, I'm very sure everyone listening did. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is insider information.
This, yeah.
It was very fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please edit out anything that can get me sued.
Well, if ever there was, it's too late into the podcast. 1 hour in, so no one watches.
No one
that
watches
part in.
that part.
Okay,
Right?
that's-
Yeah. But I just realized one thing, and looking at this angle, right?
Yeah.
He looks also like a Tony Fernandez as well.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
yeah. Please, you're not the first one.
Yeah.
It's happened before.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Now that you mention it.
I'm more handsome than Tony. You see, that's the problem. You don't say Tony Fernandez looks like me.
Yeah. Correct.
Apologies.
Apologies for that. Yeah. But Kamesam, thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time, and sorry if we have extended, the time you've allocated for us.
No, not at all. What time is it actually?
12.
Oh, just nice. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. And to listeners out there, if you like this kind of content, please do share it out with your friends. Click on the like, subscribe, so the YouTube algorithm can spread the word. And do remember to hit that notification bell so that the next videos, when they are out, you'll be notified. All right. See you guys in the next episode.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Great fun. Thank you.
Yeah.